right, so moving on to our next speaker, Santosh Bhat. With over 19 years experience in planning and scheduling across Australia and Asia, Santosh is an independent consultant to projects or organizations looking to improve their capabilities and deliver results through improved project planning, scheduling, and risk analysis. Linear project software was established to provide tools for visualization of linear project schedules. Using industry expertise and his background in management software development, let me say it again. Using industry expertise and his background in management software development, their first offering, TurboChart, aims to make creating time location charts from existing schedule data easy and fast. Santosh holds a Master's of Engineering Management from the University of Technology, Surrey. Santosh, over to you.
Thank you, Phil. Can you hear me? Am I being heard?
You're not really very loud.
Okay.
Something's happened with your mic, mate.
Let me see if I can just adjust
That's
this.
better. I think you're sorted now.
How's that? Okay. Let me share my screen and see if the wonders of technology work.
Break a leg, mate.
How's that?
You're good. You're good.
Brilliant. Okay, let's start. So thank you, Phil, for hosting us at another Glimpse event. This is I think our third or fourth one that we've attended, and certainly the first one that I've managed to be able to deliver from my home here in cold Sydney. So the topic for today is about time location charting for linear projects. So some of you may be familiar with the term time location, or you may have heard this in some other terms like linear schedules, time chainage, location-based schedules, lines of balance. There's many different names for this sort of thing. What I'm going to hopefully do today is talk to you a little bit about what are time location charts and why we think they're useful for linear projects. We'll cover a quick story, a customer story about a company here in Australia that's adopted our product. And if time permits, we'll do a quick demonstration. Just before I continue, I mean, as I said, this is our third event that we've attended, and I'm just blown away by the technology that's available to our industry at the moment. When I first started, one of the big things was, the technology's not available, and the advances in that area are just phenomenal. And I think the issue now is it's no longer that technology is the problem, but it's the culture and the people now that are preventing a wider adoption of innovation and technology across our industry. So that's just I'll get off my soapbox now and continue. So just a little bit about our business, Linear Project Software, or company. So I am one of the co-founders based here in Sydney. I guess I'm the subject matter expert in the venture, and my partner in crime is Russell Johnson, who's based in the UK there near London. He also has 20 plus years of experience in software development and has worked a lot around the project management and enterprise risk type of area. So you may have heard of a package called PertMaster. He was one of the brainchilds of that particular product. So just to put some context into why I'm talking about this, project schedules or programs, if we're using the UK term, but I'm going to call them schedules from now on. Schedules are a foundation of good project management, and they're used extensively and for many purposes, as shown on the screen here. They're a planning tool, they're a management tool, they're a communication tool, they're a work tool, they're an administration tool. They get used for so many purposes. They're a very useful and very powerful element of managing projects and project controls. However, when you're thinking about developing schedules, there's a big risk of developing schedules in isolation, or developing schedules by the hero planner, the hero scheduler who knows the answer for everything. This is a recipe for disaster. As the diagram shows there, having that sort of attitude tends to leave people disenfranchised, upset, or feel excluded and left out. Not a good idea. I like to call it's the project plan and the project schedule, and ultimately the rest of the team will deliver their plan, not your plan. Now, I have stolen that from someone, and I'm able to tell you who's that if you want to ask the question. So, gaining team buy-in and collaboration for informed decision making is probably the most critical aspect of developing schedules. As I quite said, so they're probably one of, if not the most important factor, is how you communicate the schedule, because communicating allows others to then get involved and introduces them to being able to analyze it. However, when it comes to communicate the schedule, how can we expect them to understand what it says and be able to analyze it when this is what a typical schedule output is? If you've asked to ever see a schedule, this is probably what you've been handed, a pile of paper. If you're lucky, you may get to sit in one of these sessions, like a workshop where someone's scrolling up and down a Primavera or some other tool screen, line by line, row by row, critical parts, work breakdown structures, all those type of terms. This is my career, this is my profession, and even I find this a very boring experience. It gets worse. When asked to deliver a schedule to someone who's not at a desk or hasn't got access to the software, this is what we do. We print out pages and pages and pages and pages, and we ask them to review it, to analyze it, to understand it, and get back to us. It's a recipe for disaster, because it's just not the most, unless you've got a very good understanding of how to interpret schedules and interpret Gantt charts, output like this is not going to be very meaningful. Excuse me. However, and thankfully, on linear projects or linear infrastructure projects, there is an alternative method that addresses a lot of these problems and can help improve communication and analysis. So let's just step back a little bit. What are linear projects? Classic examples of linear projects are shown on the screen there: highways, tunnels, high-rise apartments. Yes, high-rise buildings are linear projects in a way. Railways or pipelines as well, all considered as linear projects. They all share a similar characteristic where there's repetitive works, repetitive sequences of works that progress along the linear element of the project. And they also interact with the more static elements. So that's a key element to think about as well. So linear projects have a very special factor to them. So let me explain that a little bit further. When we think about a traditional schedule or a traditional program, this is what we see. We see a Gantt chart. It has a time axis that runs across the horizontal, and the vertical is usually some sort of a work breakdown structure, some sort of grouping or hierarchical way of organizing activities. You'll see the main features of these charts: single task per line. It's very hard to differentiate one task from another. What does it mean? And you've got very little hope of understanding where things are occurring unless you've got some very sophisticated way of describing activities or grouping and sorting them into clusters. So linear projects have an advantage in this space. So let's look at things slightly differently. Let's continue having a time axis across our chart, so it's on the horizontal axis, but the vertical axis is represented by the location along the linear axis, or the linear alignment of the particular project. So if you think about a highway, it has a start and an end point, which represents that linear alignment. So let's use the linear axis as the linear element as the axis rather than a work breakdown structure. Onto this chart, we can now place all our scheduled tasks or program tasks. They're no longer limited to being one per row, but they span over the time and the location that we're specifying they occur. We can then use different shapes or colors or styles that represent the actual type of work. So now you've got a much more meaningful interpretation of what a schedule says. You now know what's happening, where it's happening, and when it's happening. So let's just spin it around a little bit. Because the horizontal or the location linear axis tends to be a bit more interesting, we tend to like to look at these charts in this orientation, except for vertical high-rise buildings, but they're a slightly different way of looking at these charts. So This is a typical time chainage, time location, linear schedule with the axes and the activities and the tasks all being displayed. What are the benefits of these charts? Very quickly, you can start identifying work and crew sequences. Where are the work crews operating? Which direction are they heading in? What's their rate of progress? The angles of the lines you see on these charts mean the speed that they're working at. A very shallow line means a very fast operation. A steep line tends to mean a slow operation. We can also pick up things like clashes and errors, where lines intersect or where there's multiple activities occurring in the same space and time. You can beg the question, is this feasible? Can we actually be doing this, or have we made a mistake in our schedule? In which case, you may need to revisit the way that the schedule has been constructed. It's also possible to do schedule comparisons using these type of charts. If you think about comparing schedules, and we heard from DJ earlier on, getting involved in a lot of delay and claims type analyses, you want to understand what was our originally intended schedule versus what are we now able to achieve. These charts can be used for that as well. So that's a bit of background. I want to talk a little bit about, and the main selling point, obviously, all on one single chart and direct from the project schedule. I missed that part. So I want to talk a little bit about one of the companies here in Australia. Most of our customers at present are in Australia, and a number of those companies are now making the product that I'm going to show you as their standard tool for doing this type of work. But one particular case is a company called John Holland. They have a 70-year history across our region, Australia, New Zealand, Southeast Asia. They are a tier 1 contracting services. They operate in all types of areas around infrastructure, property development. However, they do have a focus on very highly technical and complex linear infrastructure type of projects. So there's two being shown there from our two largest cities in Australia. There's the Melbourne Westgate Tunnel, a huge project that's worth just shy of 7 billion Australian dollars. And John Holland have been involved in the WestConnex motorway and tunnels, essentially about 30 kilometres of tunnels under suburban Sydney. Two specific projects there, multi-billion type of projects, very complex, very technical, very high risk, I might add as well, given all the elements of working in an urban environment. John Holland in particular have I suppose, a global recognition in their rail and tunnelling expertise. They're very well known for the ability to deliver tunnelling and rail projects. Certainly in Australia, they're considered as one of the best operators in this space. And on the screen there is a couple of, hopefully you can see these videos that are playing of two of their projects and operations. So what is it about John Holland's planning and scheduling on their linear projects? So first of all, John Holland's has a very well-developed existing governance system around their planning and scheduling. They have a well-developed set of standards on how to produce schedules, from the full life cycle of their projects. And they have well-developed systems and tools that they use for planning and scheduling. So they're not looking to replace any of that. They certainly recognize the benefits of time location charts on their linear projects, and given that they get involved in so many of these, they do try and encourage all their projects to produce these time location charts. They know the benefits of being able to, again, communicate and analyze programs and schedules using this format. Why TurboChart? Why did they pick TurboChart in particular? Number one reason was they said it integrates with their existing planning and scheduling tool, which is Primavera P6. It doesn't replicate, it doesn't duplicate, touches upon a common theme that we've seen across all the previous presenters, which is a single central repository for information. The risk in scheduling is obviously if you have multiple versions of schedules, you run the risk that not one of them is telling you the truth. So the fact that our product integrates with TurboChart was one of their key selection factors. And because of that, it then encourages their programming and their scheduling and their planning to all be done in an integrated manner. It doesn't just extract the linear element and work on it in isolation. It actually takes into consideration design, commissioning, testing, procurement, etc. And obviously, with our tool, we provided a cost-effective solution that didn't require retraining or learning in whole new methodologies or any sort of a large IT investment in licensing or infrastructure around that. Just very quickly, an example project, one of these WestConnex projects in Sydney. Roselle Interchange is its name. It's, the picture on the left shows you the construction site. It's approximately 10 hectares with 3 tunnel launching sites. So this particular intersection, or underground intersection as they're calling it, connects up with the 35 kilometres of motorway. Now, the job itself, while it looks very compact, actually consists of about 22 different road-headed tunnels, totaling 23 kilometres of tunnelling in distance. So, and not continuous either. So while it might not seem like a linear project, it very much is so when you think about the tunnelling aspect. So they've given me the okay to give a version of one of their time chainage or time location charts of their projects. This is a one-pager that was used for this particular project. On this one page, you're actually seeing over 2,500 scheduled tasks, but within the image that you're seeing on the screen here, you can straight away identify the direction that the tunnelings are occurring in. You can actually pick up the sequences of which way the road headers are being used. You can detect when various sites become available, the handovers between the various segments from tunnelling to what they call the back-end works, over to mechanical and electrical, and then the commissioning, all wrapped up nicely into one page. And this is now the way that the schedule or the program is now communicated across the project. You can pretty much walk into any of the project offices, and rather than seeing hundreds and hundreds of Primavera printouts laying on tables, you'll see one chart on the wall of everyone's desk, because that's what they use to communicate the timing of all the works. Just some comments from some of their key staff members, I guess. What are the 3 best features of using TurboChart? Helps decision making, provides an overview of their program constraints and logistics, allows them to interrogate and do a quality control on their P6 program, and obviously the third point, allows the whole team to bind in. I love this comment. There is no way the site teams are looking at a detailed Gantt chart to plan their works, whereas the time chainage does produce a lot more, I guess, elegant way of presenting that. Why did they pick TurboChart? I know a few other reasons. Obviously, as I mentioned, connectivity with their existing software for scheduling, the ease of using it, very easy for their planners to pick up. We've had planners say within a few hours they've been able to produce outputs and very quickly be able to compare various scenarios. When you're working on these complex jobs, you're often doing a lot of modeling and scenario building to try and optimize the result. Time permitting, this should take less than a minute. Just a very quickly, a quick demo of how TurboChart works. Essentially, we append additional data into user data fields that define what the task represents and where that task is occurring along that linear axis. And we add that information to the relevant activities in the schedule. Using TurboChart, we actually connect to our scheduling data source, in this case Primavera. We map those extra fields and we import the fields in. Then it's a case of as a one-off exercise, defining how we want everything to appear. Green lines, blue boxes, each task represents a different thing. As our schedule changes, as we modify logic, as we modify durations, add activities, the schedule itself will change. And obviously that means dates will also change. TurboChart is simply a matter of just refresh by going and grabbing the latest set of dates. Essentially, we just press refresh, we'll see the dates. And just to see that again and to compare how it with a previous version of the schedule. And this is all real time. I haven't sped this up in any way. So that's actually how fast the import and refresh cycle actually works. So just to touch upon the topic of the glimpse into the future, time location, time chainage charting is not a new phenomenon. It's actually recorded cases over a century ago of this type of method. What we've done is put a modern spin on it to say, let's make it more efficient and let's make it more easier using modern technology. It's a desktop tool for the time being, primarily because most schedulers still use desktop tools, so we connect with their systems. But we do have it's an open-ended technology, can be used for the future as well. We deliver updates over the internet as we're updating the software fairly regularly. It connects with most popular scheduling tools, P6, Microsoft Project, Asta, Safran Risk, Safran Planner, and as mentioned, copy and paste. So that's pretty much my presentation on linear time location charting for linear projects. Anyone's welcome to visit our website for more information or download a free trial of the software. And I shall return back to you, Phil.
That was so impressive. Having been involved with you and Russ for the past year and a half, 2 years, it's been wonderful to see how your offering has developed. It's just really impressed with the development of the product, the increases in functionality, and the way you tell your story. It's a great story. And the John Holland projects look incredibly complicated. So it's wonderful that you've been able to give them something new, a planning and scheduling tool that didn't require the replacement of any other systems, and which gave them value very quickly. And I guess they've been on the journey with you as well.
Yes, they're a fantastic team that thoroughly enjoy the software as well. I could have, unfortunately, because of the sensitive nature of project schedules, often indicating completion and timings of things, I wasn't able to show you some of their more elegant examples. But they're nothing but positive feedback from the users across John Holland, saying, I've even had some people say using TurboChart makes scheduling fun. that's quite a scary idea, but I'm glad to hear it.